our Eco-Civilization talk of the day. My name is Jana Feierovet and I work for GM and the Circular Business Academy, and I will be introducing this session today. So as you know, and as you've read in the chat, we're seated in Ljubljana, Slovenia, and even though it's still the autumn cycle, it's already snowing here for the first time today. And of course, we want to learn more about our audience. So while I start with some introductory remarks, please use the chat box, as I've seen some have already done, to tell us where you're joining us from and maybe also what the weather is like. And who knows, maybe it's even the end of spring for you if you're on the other side of the globe. So we're very interested in getting to know you. We're also excited to welcome you all because every session we see that there are more of us and we feel vindicated that we are on a very meaningful journey. So thank you for joining us today. During the first part on the Individuum, we heard about engagement, active learning, and mindset and heart set in the eco-civilization, and also about the importance of engaging the youth. But today we will go further and we will focus more on the inside of our soul. So we will hear about the inner developments we undergo and what happens in our minds and souls, and how this is also influenced by the community we are a part of. So I'm looking very forward to learn a lot from our speakers and distinguished guests today. And I'm sure you've also already watched their introductory videos on LinkedIn. So you've got a taste of what's before us. Before I introduce you to our speakers, I would like to make a few short notices. So this talk is organized by the Circular Business Academy and GM in cooperation with Violeta Bulls, the curator of the Eco-Civilization and the leading figure behind this initiative. The talk is free of charge, which is due to the funding of the Public Fund for Scholarships and Professional Training of the Republic of Slovenia. And we're thankful for this. Today's talk is one in a series of talks on the eco-civilization, and the series started in spring. This is our journey to imagine and discuss possible societal implications of this future civilization, this future world. We consider this transition a paradigm shift, and we want to have all of you engage in this discussion and participate. So please send us your thoughts in form of an essay, and we will publish a certificate after this autumn cycle ends. Of course, as always, there are some simple ground rules. So please contribute to the discussion by posting your questions and comments in the chat box. So please also include whom these questions are for, and speakers will answer these questions as we go in the chat box. If there are some general questions, we will pick them up in the discussion and we will try to give an answer to all of your questions. As always, this talk is recorded and the materials will be available on our website afterwards. And now I would like to introduce you to our speakers. So we welcome Dr. Malin Madziva. She's an electrical, computer, and software engineer by training. She has 12 years of functional R&D and clinical research experience in the medical devices industry. And she also has a PhD in sustainability education. Molly has devoted the last decade to sustainable development in her native community in Zimbabwe. And she also hosts the Global Women's Self-Sustainability Forum in Zimbabwe. So a warm welcome to you, Molly. We are also happy to have Urška Batelino with us. She's a psychoanalytic psychotherapist, supervisor and training analyst, and she's also currently a PhD candidate at the Sigmund Freud University in Ljubljana. She works in a private practice with individuals and groups, and she specializes in obsessive compulsive disorder and burnout. Thank you for joining us, Urška. And finally, Dr. Dražen Šumiga. He's a psychotherapist who has his own private practice, a philosopher, and a lecturer at the Sigmund Freud University in Ljubljana. And he's also a former researcher at the Erich Fromm Institute in Tübingen. His primary focus of interest is scientific research of phenomenology, theoretical psychoanalysis, and relational psychotherapy. So a warm welcome also to you, Dražen. And with this, I would like to give the word to Violeta Bulc to start this talk. Violeta? Can you hear me? Violeta, I think you're muted.
Yes, thank you very much, and welcome everyone to this session on Individuum in Ecocivilization, where we are focusing on individual itself, on us. And I'm welcoming all of you who join us on Zoom and those who are with us through the Facebook streaming. So I'm really excited today because we're going to dive into a very personal space. And I'm sure that we're going to find many interesting things there. And with your help, with the help of your questions, we will be able to stream this river into even more useful waters. Without any further ado, let me go to our speakers. And I would like to start with Dražen. Dražen, hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Welcome. So we already heard your resume. And what really attracted me when I looked at it, besides, of course, all the titles, is your area of scientific research. And I will try to read it correctly, just to give the audience a feel of who they're dealing with and where your comments are coming from. So phenomenology, as I could find it on the net, is the study of structures of consciousness as experience from the first-person point of view. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about that once I pass the word to you. The second one is theoretical psychoanalysis, a clinical method for treating psychopathology developed by Freud, who defined that a personality is formed through conflicts among three fundamental structures of human mind: ID, ego, and superego. I cannot wait to get some perspective on that. And of course, relational psychotherapy, an approach that can help individuals recognize the role relationships play in the shaping of daily experiences. And that is a very, not only interesting, but very important topic for our day-to-day engagement. So first of all, Dražen, tell us, what do you think, or how do you think that we as humans have developed, let's say for the last 1,000 years? Have we? Can you, from this psychotherapist's point of view, see any evolvement? Can we see evolution in the inner world of us humans? Please, Dražen.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to this project. You nicely explained the basic things which I do, in which I'm interested. So this is a very important question. Have we developed how we are, where we are now at this moment, at this time in history?
Dražen, your voice is a bit shaky. Maybe you could change your mic a little bit, because there's some...
Okay, just a second. Okay, it's now a little bit better.
A little bit, not much, but please go ahead.
Okay, a little bit. Okay. I will try to speak slowly to explain what I think. If I'm too fast or something, please let me know that I'm too fast or you don't hear.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, from my point of view, I can see that there is a lot of development on the technological level. We develop a lot. We have a lot of machines, technology, media, and so on. This is the one part of historical development. which is also important, but it's not the only one. So there is also the second level, I would say emotional development, which sometimes it's not so developed. So what I see in our society, there is a problem of, in psychoanalysis and philosophy, we talk about split between the mind and the body. So this is like a basic, which I see the basic problem. We develop a lot of tools, but on the other hand, we sometimes forget about other people, about emotional development, I would say inner development. So sometimes the tools can become like rulers of our own lives. So that's, I think, is one point. I would say, if I quote German philosopher Heidegger, we develop this calculative pragmatic thinking, but on the other hand, we forget about this, I would say, more meditative or thinking which connect us with other beings or nature or culture or past history. Sometimes we always ask ourselves, how come that history repeats? But history repeats because we didn't actually connect it with our memories and from former generations. So we forget sometimes what happened and what is going on the historical level. What I think what we need now is more here and now approach. That means in psychotherapy that we are in the moment, that we do not fly away from emotions, our own inner processes, but to feel more and be more connected with others. This is like one point. And on the social level, what actually we need is that we understand that projection of our own traumas or vulnerabilities onto the others will not help to grow the society. That means if we experience greed, hatred, violence, and we project onto other groups or people, then we will form communities which are fighting one against each other. So the first step also in psychotherapy is to understand that what we see in others is actually our own feelings which we do not accept. So if I do not accept, I don't know, violence and impulses in myself, then usually we unconsciously project into other people, and we say these people are bad or ugly or whatever. So that's like one important point. One thing I would like to mention is that now is a very difficult time because we feel threatened. Our own ontological security is threatened. So this is also another point. When human beings are threatened, they do irrational things. They fight, they quarrel, and so on. We should be concerned also about large-scale violence, aggression, and all these things which are, again, projected onto other groups. So, example, we are a good group and another one are bad because they have different lifestyle or they think differently. They have different hairstyle, eyes, different bodily features, and so on. So this, I think, is a problem.
Dražen, may I ask you this point, because this is a very interesting moment when you are talking about, first of all, that what we criticize as others is really something we don't feel comfortable with, and also this split of either you're with us or you're against us. Has this been evolving? I mean, is there anything, is our behavior and intensity of our behavior related to the overall development of a society, or it has this inner world completely separate rules under which we evolve?
Okay, yeah. That's an important point. We share an inner world, but it's invaded by images, by informations, by different things which invade our dreams, our thoughts, or different processes. So we have very little time to be with ourselves. So sometimes to be with ourselves and our inner processes, it becomes a difficulty or it becomes a problem. So I think the first thing is like to be aware of what is going inside, because this is a very important thing, our own processes. How we think, how we behave, how we feel, that's, I think, is very important. We need more of that, I would say. This qualitative process, what is going phenomenological inside of us. I think this is important. I would just conclude this part with one idea, which I think is captures also, it comes from ancient Greece, which is also in Renaissance philosophy, which Plato and Socrates developed this idea. To be a human being is actually a great miracle. It's something important. It's something beautiful. It's not just, we are not like other objects, like cars, trains, or airplanes. To be human is something special, and also to be animal is something special. We need also like ethics towards how to behave towards other beings, not just humans. It means nature, like Earth, which is the living thing. It's not just dead matter. So this is also to reactualize this question, to again ask, what does it mean to be human, and how can we become more human, not less?
Super, Dražen. I would ask Sebastian to work with you maybe on the sound, and I'll come back to you as soon as I introduce other speakers. But let me pick up what you just said, and with that in mind, I will move to Urška. Urška, you've been well introduced also as a psychotherapist, and especially you are a big practitioner. So dealing with challenges on a day-to-day basis for hours per day. So my question to you would be, how do you see, when you listen to your patients, this element of the Dražen said that we need to first acknowledge who we are. Yes, so this our self-awareness. How would you assess the current stage of our capacity to be self-aware, please?
It is paradoxically, because we are witnessing remarkable progress in the field of mental health. For example, psychoanalysis opened the way to psychotherapy as we know it today. But on the other hand, therapists in practice are witnesses in increasing of mental disorders like anxiety, panic attack, burnout. Burnout is also symptom of our age, our times. And the number psychopharmaceuticals is also rising sharply, and incredible quantities of prescribed antidepressive, antipsychotic, and sedative. And with all the progress of humanity, however, society is becoming increasingly infantile.
So what do you mean by that, Urška?
I mean that individuals are in the child phase, are manageable, controlled, with less and less autonomy, and are good consumers in a narcissistic society. In my practice, where I mostly work with OCD disorder and burnout, people have feeling that they are never good enough. They compete with themselves and the world, and also all of them have a fantasy that something controls them over which they have no control. This is very interesting point. You can't read about this, but I see this in that people live in this way. So the child is feeling that something is stronger than them, is looking for a quick fix. So they expect someone or something to rescue them, that they could feel better. So take a pill or something that release their problems. And also you may ask, why is our society so childish or immature? Lacan said, when it occurs the society without father figures, the society will transform in immature position. when individual has no introjects of father figure, it means that he has no opportunities to rely on a stable part of his psyche. And the consequence is compensation for fears and other unpleasant feelings from unconscious.
But I mean, what does that tell about us in today's day? Have we evolved, or actually have we, due to the progress and of technology and everything that came along with it, have we actually made a step back and then became more sensitive for OCD and burnouts? Is that something that you see is a element of a modern society? And of course, my question is, how do we get rid of that? I mean, how do we make the next step, because into the future, healthier and stronger? Because obviously these OCDs and burnouts are not something that can create a healthy society.
Burnout is a symptom. So when we talk how we grow, overcome this, the awareness is the first step in the process which lead us on the path of growing up. And it is a process. According to Jung, we have differentiation. When I know my mom's feeling is not mine, then is separation, that we leave illusions and start growing up. And the last is individualization, when you realize yourself according to your talents. Yes.
So what do you mean? We need to grow up?
Yes.
Every one of us? Is that what you're suggesting?
Society is childish. You see on every step in the system, it's health system or every system, people doesn't take responsibility for their work. And this is the huge problem. The other problem which I see is trauma.
Trauma, okay.
Yes. Trauma is an interesting mechanism. It's prevent self-awareness in the collective and individual level of understanding, and has very tricky mechanism which could disable the individual and the whole society if it comes in touch with it. So the trauma lives its own life in unconscious and of an individual and also the whole society. And it's important to know that suppressing trauma not only impacting an individual or society, but also is transmitted through generation.
Okay, but Urška, this is a perfect moment, if you allow me, that I move to our third guest. Molly, when I read your resume, it's almost like I'm reading my own, you know, growing up in rural community, electrical, computer and software engineer, being fond of sustainable development and care a lot about the communities. So it's like, I'm really excited now to hear you. Urška already mentioned this relationship between individual and the community, yeah? And if anything else, you are very closely related and very active in the level of the community itself. So probably it's worth mentioning again that you're coming from a small village, Mačeke, but now you're actually a global player. You know, you send us your video from California. But at the same time, you run this women's forum on sustainability in Zimbabwe. So tell us what, or how should I say, how strong is this influence of the community, being family, peer pressure, or local community, or even broader, like the state or global pressure, on our inner world? What do you see? Because you have this big picture, but you deal with individuals within this local communities. So what do you see? How do you feel it?
Yeah, thank you. To begin to answer that question, I think I'm going to just invite everyone to take a real deep breath. It's important to be able to do what we just did together. It's an example of what it means to be in community. We may be in very different places. At the moment, this is a global community listening in. But before I go further, maybe I want to explain a little bit about what my context of what we're calling this inner world, just so that we are sort of on the same page. So part of that is being able to be in touch with what I call the true self, being in touch with those hopes and dreams, you know, the instincts and the intuition, having that private space where my imagination can really thrive, have an opportunity to reflect. I have a creative spirit, and I really get the sense that, you know, this thing that we're calling the inner world is the place where that is actually nourished. You know, I would also even call that, you know, the sense of where I'm having this feeling of well-being. But when all is said and done, it's truly my deep connection to a spiritual practice, right? Being able to really have a way to live and to navigate life, having a deep sense of faith. So that's what, when we're talking about inner world, at least when I'm talking about it, I just wanted to give everyone the context there. This is where I'm sort of coming from when I talk about this space. So that's a really good question, Violetta, about you know, community influence. Somewhere along our talk here, I'll share some pictures, because I do believe that pictures 1,000 words. But the biggest part begins with what I consider a sense of belonging, right? So when you are a part of a community, by default, it really should allow you to feel that you are a part of something. And yet we recognize that you know, there are many people that may be feeling like they are alone, right, in the world. So a big amount of what a community that is wholesome and that is, you know, in respect to nature and recognizing, you know, where we're coming from and where we're going, would allow for that. Another aspect would be what I term vulnerability. And the reason why that is quite important to tune in or lean into that is when one is allowed to be vulnerable, then they are also given the permission to really play with that inner landscape, being able to feel into those, you know, emotions and those instincts and that intuition. Another aspect of it on influence would be this concept of lineage and legacy. Mm-hmm. In my upbringing, it was very big to understand where I am coming from, right? Where my roots are, who are the people that came before me, what are the shoulders I am standing on? And those stories were told with so much love and reverence, because we recognize that we can only be as good or continue to be better, but really leaned onto that lineage. Legacy then becomes a place of responsibility. And when I think about this, you know, and I'm in my mid-40s now, and I feel really excited to intentionally get involved in shaping what this legacy will be. And the people that will come 100 years from now will somehow experience a world that I have been a part of. And so when we think more globally or, you know, more holistically about that influence, we begin to recognize that we can only be as good as the community we are in. But then, you know, there's a paradox to that, right? Where we say the community can only be formed by individuals.
Molly, could I pick up here, because you have a strong connection with the old ways as well, the inner of the old cultures. So could you maybe share with us how and what the old cultures understood as the inner world? How did they dealt with this precious element? And how did you experience this connection between this strong inner world and the community on a really physical level, please?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. You know, that's a really good question, because I come from a culture that's really largely an oral tradition culture, where information and knowledge and wisdom is passed on, you know, from generation to generation, and the stories shift, you know, to match where we are, where we're going. But I really get the sense that you know, the people that came before us spent a ton of time in nature. So whether this was going into nature, you know, like I did growing up, to forage for wild fruit. You know, I love majanje, and my friends in Zimbabwe right now tell me majanje are flourishing in the wild. And there's something to be said about recognizing that we're part of something that we haven't necessarily earned, right? It's just a deep grace that we're able to be nourished, you know, by the environment around us. Another aspect that I would touch on is prayer practice. There's an African proverb that says, when you pray to God, move your feet. And this is something that is very much my experience. You know, I dance all the time. When you show up, you know, in any African village, particularly if you come to Macheke, one of the things we'll probably be doing with you is that we're dancing. And there's a deep connection to this deep gratitude, right? Of thank you for bringing us where, you know, where we are, and having a deep faith of where we're going to be going. We may not know what it is, but we know we are already taken care of. We know we are enough. And that was pretty remarkable for those older cultures, because we recognize now with the plight of what has happened with people of my skin color, you know, and I was born in 1975 at a time where, you know, race really determined whether I was worthy or not, based on someone else's, you know, shortcomings or pain or fears. And so the older cultures had already brought these concepts, and we'll talk about Uno a little bit later, but these philosophies and embodied practices that allowed us to have a deeper sense of belonging, but also a deeper sense of confidence in
Molly,
the fact that...
Let me jump in here, because I don't want to skip one important question that I have ready for you. You mentioned that you grew up in times of segregation, of inequalities, and especially women have suffered in those, are suffering in these processes even more than men do.
Yeah.
And I would assume that that's what called you, that you really dedicated so much of your life to dealing with women's issues as well. And my question would be really, what do you see in women's eyes when you're working with their pain? You know, how do you deal with this inner pain when they inside understand that so much unfairness is going on? And then they cannot do anything, or can they? How do you help them to align with that and be ready for action and be really active then in the society, please?
Yeah, thank you. So when I think of the word pain, and you know, I'll kind of give context as well, just so that we are sort of all on the same page. I'm thinking at a very fundamental, basic level of suffering or discomfort. You know, somewhere within that spectrum. But one of the things I learned early on, and this was even from childhood, but now, you know, as I've gotten older and continue to be blessed to have this opportunity to work with women from around the world, and particularly these, you know, women in Zimbabwe, is that what I was seeing in them was what was in me. And I think Dražen kind of touched on this a little bit, where if I am seeing their pain, then it must mean that there's something that is probably unresolved or unworked or unhealed in myself. And that really allowed for a deeper sense of connection. I also recognize at that point that pain spans generations. Right. So it's not something that sometimes can just be a short-lived experience. It can go from generation to generation and morph itself into some form of an identity. But when I look into my fellow women, which is looking into myself as well, right? Because we don't have that separation. I recognize the necessity of this pain in grooming the inner spirit.
I would like to connect back to Dražen. You already mentioned him, Molly, and because this just notion of pain being carried throughout the generation and becoming an identity, I'm afraid I, a Slovenian, and probably the broader Slovenian population, can very much recognize in our own behavior. Yeah. So here, Dražen, I'm coming back to you. And could you explore this a little bit further? Because Molly already challenged you that you just briefly touched it. And maybe also at the same time, go back to the Western mind and these three elements that we already discussed at the beginning, when I mentioned that you work with this Freud model that talks about ID, ego, and superego. We're all yours, Dražen. Please unmute yourself first.
Okay. Okay, that's a very important question, not just theoretical but also practical. How we are made up from how do we behave, how we live, and what we do. So basically, the basic idea is that we have there is one level of our functioning which is not conscious. So there is a whole level of different drives, emotions, and things which are beneath. And then we have like ego, which is, we usually identify with ego, with I am this and that, I'm doing that and that. That is the ego level. And then when this ego level is threatened, sometimes we react. For example, we can run away, we can fight, and so on, on different levels. And then we have also superego level, which sometimes the prohibitions and laws are internalized, like Urška said before. These messages from parents become part of us. So you should do that, you shouldn't marry, you should do this faculty, you shouldn't do that. So this becomes the ego, which is inside of our minds. So ego is like a mediator between these two levels. So sometimes we can do something good for a society, and sometimes we don't. So that's like we alternate between these two levels. And sometimes we are kind and noble, and sometimes don't. So that is like basic idea.
How can we manage this better? Because it seems like at least in a certain levels of a society, this is a bit running out of control. So what are the tools that we can use in order to keep ourselves in balance?
Okay. Urška before mentioned Lacan. His basic idea was that what we desire, sometimes we desire the desires of the others, or we want to have objects of the others. So first we have to ask ourselves, what are our inner goals? What motivates us? What do we want to do with our lives? Our lives are not just like a simple project to buy, like, for example, buy a car or paint a house or do some simple stuff. But it's one of the most important tasks of our own lives. So what we have to do is ask ourselves, what is our unconscious motivation? It is full of empathy, or is it full of greed, or is something in between? So this is like a basic question, to ask ourselves, what are our own motivations?
Okay, thank you very much, Dražen. And let me now jump to Urška, because you already mentioned her a few times. And I still cannot get over with the statement that she used. We all have to grow up. Urška, we have to go a bit deeper on that one. So what are the tools that we can use, and how can we grow up, and maybe through that come closer to what Rajan was mentioning, and also Molly before, to have this balance inside ourselves. And maybe you can relate that to these very challenging times that we found ourselves in, which is this pandemic era. Please, Urška.
Yes, it is challenging time, and the self-awareness is an important step to grow up. When we can feel our pain and our transgeneration trauma and our patterns and everything, during the process and during the time, you can disintegrate in your psyche. So you can functional with the whole your being, and the unpleasant feelings and all drives from unconscious, it's not like demon anymore.
So basically what you're trying to tell us that because like we work in the garden and we make it all nice, and you fertilize it, you take care of the plants, we have to do the same with our inner world. We have to take care of it, be aware of it, nurture it. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Yes, because we talked before about pain. For my patient, they coming a lot of pain, of course, and which is transformed to symptom, of course. And my work here is that I stand with this pain and carry the pain in that moment, and help people to feel this, and can imagine this, feel pain, and
you just want us to get comfortable with everything we feel inside.
Yes. But you need time for this. It's not for like a moment. It's not. You need time for this. It is everything. It is a process.
Okay, so it's like growing the garden. I mean, you put the seeds in spring, or maybe even in the winter, and then you wait until fall that something grows and delivers fruits. That is a very, of course, challenging thing for somebody, especially for the society that wants to have it done everything now and wants everything now. It doesn't want to wait for anything. So let me see, Molly, I know that you're dealing with these challenges all the time, and I'm sure that you as a person had some challenges that had to be resolved as well. So what have you learned personally? How would you reflect what Urška said and what Rajan presented before from your personal experience? Is there something that it's worth sharing?
Yeah, indeed, always, right? And thank you for that question. Urška, I love what you were just, referring to there. I would go a step further on the growing up and actually open it up to another term, which is waking up, right? In allowing us to be able to wake up into the things that are already around us and into the feelings and experiences that are. But in addition to that, perhaps I can add that from the studies of transformation, I've kind of participated in a program called Generating Transformative Change. And in that program, what I learned was that throughout one's lifetime, you sort of go back and forth between these levels of development or these levels of growing up as you are referring to. So it is actually okay to be very deeply aware and wise about some aspects, of your life, and then still to some extent be struggling or, really be perhaps maybe even at what you might call a concrete level of development, where you're still having to work with the very basics. And I think these are the levels of perhaps consciousness or growth that Dražen was talking about with that ego bit there. So if I were to touch a little bit on my lessons, I would say one of the biggest things for me has really been a lot to recognize that I have a right to be on this planet. That's very difficult.
That's a very strong statement. Yes, and is this something related with all traditional sort of beliefs or all traditional community frameworks that we know under the name of Ubuntu or Ubuntu? I wanted to ask you, what is the Ubuntu heart? Because you use this quite a lot, and maybe this is the right moment to jump in.
To jump into that, indeed. Thank you. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen real quick and share some pictures and then dive into that. I will also give others a little bit of an exercise. So I'll ask some questions for others to sort of share in the chat there to make this part a little bit interactive. So if I may, I am going to share my screen and I am just going to share a few pictures. And as you're seeing these pictures, perhaps maybe you see yourself here, or perhaps you feel disconnected, or perhaps you are having a definition of, what the story is. These are pictures from Zimbabwe, and this is actually in Macheke. And we have our friends here eating some wild grapes. We call them, is it Sampatsi? My Zimbabwean friends are going to kill me for butchering some of these names. But allow this opportunity for these pictures to tell a story, to give the 1,000 words that, I may not be able to give in a short time. So when we talk about Hunu, and we hear a lot of the term Ubuntu, which is a word in the Zulu language, primarily used in South Africa. Hi to all my South African friends that are, listening. Hunu is a word in the Shona language. This is my native language, primarily also spoken in Zimbabwe, but perhaps across some borders there. And then now it's becoming a little bit global because we are bringing it to all over the place. Now, if someone were to ask you, or maybe let me ask the audience, how are you? You can answer and just put in the chat there to the question, how are you?
And if I may put next to it also the country you're coming from, because we would like to see which countries are with us today. And when you answer the question of Molly, please add the country you're coming from.
Thank you. And we'll come to those answers as everyone is answering. So Hunu or Ubuntu is actually mostly an embodied practice, but it is also a philosophy. So it may be easier for others that are learning of it to think of it more as a philosophy or a mindset before they can embody it. But we have another exercise a little later if we have time that might help everyone to tune into that when I see the chats coming in. Thank you very much. It is an invitation to lean into what it means to have a wholesome human experience. I think it was Sonia who spoke last time very brilliantly about leadership, and she used that term Ubuntu and kind of bracketed it with the term humanity. Similar thing.
Well, Molly, she's with us here today. She's
listening. She is. Yeah. Oh, very good.
Yes, I'm enjoying.
Hi, Sonia. Thank you. It was brilliant. And so when we think about UNO, we also can look at it as an individual's moral attributes, right? What are the things that make you a moral being so that you can have a deep sense of care for yourself, for others, and for the environment in which you live, right? So in these days of talking about climate change and sustainability, we recognize that this concept of UNO can actually be extrapolated to allow us to be able to rethink how we might connect and be able to take better care of our community. It's also a lot more about an acknowledgement of one's humanity. I cannot consider myself human when we think about UNO unless I'm acknowledging yours. Yes. Right. So
maybe this is a good moment that we make a little announcement. What will be happening next year? Because due to the some discussions we had here in Slovenia and things that Sonia brought in her model and contributed to Eco-Civilization model, you agree to run the full year of Ubuntu next year. So 2021 will be Ubuntu year. Is that correct, Molly?
We're making it happen. I'm a big believer. So, I'm an engineer, so I'm a big believer in innovation and bringing new ideas to life and sharing with the world what it is that actually makes us more unique, but also unifies us. And so thank you for, supporting that and for allowing that work to come to reality. So if I just read a little bit from
Molly, allow me at this point, take a look at the comment line, and while you're analyzing, let me move back to Dražen, because I would like to pick up what you just said now. And again, I mean, we do live in the Western world and we try to connect on a global level with the global consciousness. But Dražen, how would you comment what Molly just explained about this Ubuntu, this energy that brings, that actually they, in Africa, they embody it. In spite of all the challenges that they have this embodiment of I am if you are, or I cannot be if you are not, either good, well, happy. So how would our mind, Western mind, relate to that? And what do you think could be our glue, our philosophy? What do we have in order to feel more connected and to be to feel more close to each other? Please.
I think this is a very important ethical point which Molly said. In a way, it reminds me of a French philosopher, Emmanuel Levinas, and he said, I will quote, when you look into someone's eyes, then you cannot do the violence. So my right is equal as yours. So I will not put myself above you. So I see this in this quotation. So from my point of view, we all create the world, creating the shared world, shared living world. So whatever we contribute, it affects all of us. So we are not just separated. We live here, and what is happening in the States or in ex-Yugoslavia, it doesn't concern me. It concerns all of us, what is going on. So I see this great ethical also demand or imperative to recognize. I think it's a basic idea of recognition. I recognize you as a human being, so I will not do violence. I will not do something bad to you. I will accept you as a human being. Like Molly said, you have the supreme right to exist. I will not be above you. This is like also basic. Yes, someone said, I see Martin Buber, the same point. So this is, I think, is important.
So do you think that makes a difference then also in being more prepared to respond to pandemic like we are faced right now with, or is this what brings also strength to an individual?
Yeah, I think we have to look into ourselves to see how our own unpleasant or different emotional states are triggered with the situation. So when we know ourselves, how we react, then we will not act out on the social level. So if I feel vulnerable, if I was humiliated, then I will understand that sometimes in the past I was a victim, but now there is a point I will not be someone who victimized others. So they were talking about, Molly spoke about pain, and Urška spoke about trauma. So I think this is so connected. When we hold to our pain and work through pain, then we will not project onto the others. Then we will not be the bad guys or and do this to other people. This is also, I think, is important, because now this situation is very extreme. We are like beings who like to share things, to be connected, to be with someone, but these unfortunate situations forces us to be almost alone. This is especially difficult for children, other elderly people, and so on. It's actually an unprecedented, very difficult, I think, situation for all of us.
Urška, may I invite you maybe to further comment what Dražen just said, and I'd like you to reflect a little bit of this collective fear on our inner world. I mean, let's say we are unstable already, we have our own fears, and then all of a sudden this collective fear appears. How do we deal with that inside ourselves?
Well, I deal with my fears on my own psychoanalysis process. So when I accept all my fears, all my trauma, individual and collective as well, and accept all my pain, then I could accept the other people like they are, and that I won't change them. So we mostly like that we change the other, not change ourselves. So here's the beginning of this process.
Here is somebody saying that, Raina is actually saying that I believe human jealousy is a byproduct of some sort of victimization in the past. How do you relate to that? So how much the past is influencing our negative emotions that we then reflect towards other people?
We can see now in our country that it reflects past now in nowadays. This is our chosen trauma, what's happening now in our country. Yes, it is important.
So you agree with her. So yes, this can be understood. Yes. Okay, let me now do a little bit of intermezzo. And Jana, where do we have our guests from first? Let's see, which countries are they coming from?
We have a lot of people who live in a country that they're not originally from. We have someone from Croatia, a lot of people from Slovenia, but then also from the United States, from Montana, California, Oregon, Maryland. Also, we have from Scotland a participant, and from Serbia, but originally from Russia. And for the American or the people who currently live in America, they are from Zimbabwe and South Africa also. So a lot of different nationalities here today.
That's very good. That's how we can create some sort of global awareness, because as you mentioned, people live in different countries that they were born in. So this challenge of understanding different historical pain and traumas and also cultural frameworks is so important. I will pass now the word to Molly to wrap up her questions, but then I would like to enter the last stage of our discussion. And in order to do that, I'd like to now bring you to the concept of eco-civilization, which is basically the holding concept for today's meeting. And then I will ask our guests about how do they feel about new civilizational paradigm, and how can we deal with our inner challenges in order to be able to co-create the world, the societies that we really, really dream about. But first, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. I guess, did you want me to go into your question first or into
No, you first, and then
okay, very good.
I will go
okay.
and present.
Excellent. Yeah, that was so good. I started to think already. Okay, very good. So from some of the answers that we saw, when I asked the question, how are you? I'm seeing inspired, great, we are one, connected, curious, blessed, vision, and I think Natalie went in and said, I am because you are. So all of those are great. And I think we have a community of people here, and we also have other people on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm sure there's a lot that's brewing when it comes to that question. And when someone asks you that, in the sense of Hunu and in my cultural perspective of growing up, and this is where, having linguistic diversity is important, because in Shona, when someone says to you, how are you? Your response is, I am well, if you are well. I am well, if you are well. So already in that moment of a quick exchange, right? Instead of just saying, well, I'm fine, it's almost reminding us of that connection to community, that if somehow you have some challenges, you are somehow unwell, then perhaps I should not be, so disconnected from that. How can I support? How can I help? How can I walk with you? So I just wanted to share that, and thank you everyone for,
That's exactly, Molly, what we saw in your pictures, right? All these group healings that people sitting around holding hands or meditating or holding their hearts. Yeah. That's what you mean by that, right?
Indeed. And maybe what we can also give to everyone who is listening as an experiment to take home for the rest of the day, or maybe for tomorrow, when someone asks you, how are you? Instead of just quickly, rushing past them because you're going to a meeting, I'm fine. Perhaps you can say, I am well, if you are well. Let's see what happens.
Thank you, Molly. And now, in order to have a discussion about possible co-creation of our future, allow me first to just take you quickly through the concept of eco-civilization and how far have we got in the last 7 months since we've started to engage in this kind of dialogues and co-creating together our joint dreams. I will share my screen for this purpose. Here we go. Our eco-civilization talks have been going on for a while now, since May actually, and more we are crystallizing what could potentially be our joint next destination. The fact is that no matter which part of the world people are coming from, I keep getting the same messaging, being through media, being through social media, through articles, through our dialogues and the comments that are happening. And out of that, and especially out of our discussions, the content of possible new civilizational paradigm, which we call eco-civilization, are emerging, and they've been already corrected, improved from the initial thought. So why are we dreaming? Why do you think we need new civilization paradigm? While I'm reading this, why don't you type your thoughts into the chat box, and we will take a look at it. But for the time being, based on what the path that we walk together, I can confidently say that why eco-civilization? Because we humans want to survive and flourish. Because our drive for a fresh purpose is getting louder and louder. And because more and more intense happenings around us in our lifetime are challenging us, our behavior, values, and of course, destination. I'm sure you have more deep answers as well, and I'd love to improve our common definition with your thoughts. Please type them, and Jana will collect them, and then we'll take a look at them. How can we get there? We've discussed many different areas, and definitely the message every time we discuss a topic, the answer is by moving more inwards, doing things that feel right. For me, this was such a powerful message when it emerged, that we don't need to constantly always ask laws and regulation and ask somebody else to correct our behavior, because if we go deeply inside ourselves, we always know what's right and what's wrong. And that corresponds with the theory of quantum physics, where they say that the system on a quantum level always knows what's right. Yeah, and it's fascinating to watch different types of videos that talk about the observer in quantum physics. So I'm inviting you to take a look at that. How? By setting new priorities which are more aligned with the laws of nature. Because after all, we humans are part of nature, and we are constantly trying to push ourselves away from that. But we know that when we correspond with the laws of nature, and even before when we discussed with Urshka and Rajan and Molly, we could sense that they are actually talking about the laws of nature. It takes time in order to process the inward, to process different concepts and understandings of the world inside ourselves. And the nature also takes time, but it always takes whatever it's available and makes the best out of it. So the third one that is emerging is by setting for ourselves a new shared vision, new destination, which of course is bringing out the best in us and creating conditions for global collaboration. If nothing else, the climate change and the pandemic really showed us a mirror and pushed us into collective actions. And I hope that we can evolve more around that. The third one that came, the fourth one that came across is by creating new tools, understandings, by becoming aware who we are, where we are, and where we are heading. So, and the last but not least, when we take a look at the what, we see, and this still holds, that there is one shared vision that we probably can engage around, which is the new civilizational paradigm. Let's call it eco-civilization for the sake of argument at this point. It could change in the future, but a new civilizational paradigm, which if you take a look at the last 25,000 years, you will see that these cycles were happening all the time. And if we look around very closely, we will see that there is lots of indications that something like that might emerge in our lifetime in the future. Second, two big hopes. We continue to exist as a species. We keep technology as a tool. Do not allow the technology takes over. That was such a strong message when we had with my dear friend Anna in the first talk of eco-civilization, when we addressed the technology. And it was very clear that we need to be very much aware that technology is a tool, and it should not be a destination. It should not be a goal, but just a tool for a higher common goals. We share obviously three major values: transparency, inclusiveness, and sustainability. And it came so strongly when we discussed the communities, how transparency is important for global collaboration. So whenever transparency is present, trust starts to evolve, and then people can really engage on a trust footing and can really deliver incredible results. Four major goals: Earth as an ecozone of our galaxy, so that we really take even a higher view of the planet Earth and then see how important and precious it is in the family of other planets. Population of other planets is completely reachable goal, but I do hope we're gonna develop a sustainable values and sustainable concepts that we will take with us in the space, because currently we are polluting it even worse than the planet Earth. Relationship-based civilization. So instead of putting technology as the major driver of value creation, we put relationships that exist on quantum or individual human level, or in a relationship with human with other species on this planet. And of course, in order to really understand that and to comfortably claim it as an important element of our value creation, is that we need a new physics, and it's emerging physics that will be able to explain this type of relationships and actually help us to understand them better and their importance in our life. In order to do that, 5 major entities have evolved as a core element of observation. Again, everything I'm sharing is a subject of continuous development. So this is where we are at this point, focusing on beings, society, land, awareness, and relationship, either within these groups or between these groups. And that's how this model of eco-civilization has emerged. But as I said, we are tuning in together, and who knows how this will look like in a year or two at a time, when we all become smarter and we can have a better understanding of what the civilizational paradigm is all about. So far, we've had 9 discussions, or actually 10, because some of the topics we repeated with different types of groups because of the importance or the extensity that we understood about that particular topic. And today, as I said, we are discussing individualism. I would like to just share a little bit from previous discussions, because even when we discussed communities, the individual level became such a strong part of a discussion that it was fueling a local and global level. So that's why we decided to put such a big focus on what's going on inside us, because we saw that through the discussions on the community level, we cannot but really deeply understand individual level. So the first element, as it was said at the beginning, it was addressing our ability to learn, ability to engage and lead, and ability to understand through 3 exceptional speakers. And everything that we are opening today is just feeding directly in the processes that they were describing, about the necessity of active learning, which of course it's always fueled by the level of our capacity that we have inside to accept new, to be willing to learn, to be willing to change our habits. And of course, that expands our ability to understand, which Ramit was showing us how important it is to work with the youth, and he's running this program when you expand the young people's minds in order to be able to understand what's going on around their world. And with Sonia, we explored this incredible model of IEU, of leadership, to understand the need to really address all levels of our existence in order to be a good leader, engager, motivator, which today we are just making even a step further, and hopefully be stronger in understanding how through our inner capacity we actually influence these abilities to learn, to understand, and to engage. So that was from my side, and now I'm going back to my original question, which is, my dear guests, with everything that we discussed today, how do you feel? Where are we heading? And is this civilizational paradigm possible new destination where humanity can meet? So let me start again with Dražen. Go ahead.
Yeah, like we spoke before, we need a paradigm shift. When this happens, we will all start thinking different about old problems. And this can take a course for the whole society. We can go on a different way. What we also is good to engage is imagination and creativity. That means that we can, at least what we can do is just imagine that there is a possibility that there is a different society. So rule of law, rule of connectedness, ethics, and so on. So the first step is awareness, and then also imagination. So the society is not a fixed phenomenon. So we evolve. As we evolve as humans, also society evolves. That's also a parallel process. And I would conclude with the idea that it's good to develop this being mode. That means to be in touch with ourselves, our needs, psychological needs for accomplishment, security, connectedness, and so on, and develop this kind of subtle things in our own lives. And then when we go, paradoxically, when we go inside and when we deepen our own inner processes, we go also outside. That means inner and outer is so connected. That would be like.
Thank you, Dražen. Molly, can you relate to that? And what would you say?
Very much so. I can totally relate, and as always, I'll add a little bit more to that. So I have a deep faith in humanity. I have a deep faith in God. I really believe that we have an opportunity, being born for such a time. What a wonderful opportunity to be able to come together and work together towards, perhaps we can call it development of our civilization, so that those that are coming after us will be able to experience something with deep pride that we were here during such a time. I'm a big believer also in the concept of leadership. Right. So when we think about Hunu and leadership and how we can actually be able to have each of us bringing value. I think it was Curtis maybe last time who spoke a bit about everyone being a value adder, right? Bringing something to the table, bringing something to each day as an individual by default that then contributes to the larger community. I also would like to add the concepts of mentorship and sponsorship, because that can be a fundamental aspect of holding each other's hands, allowing the younger generation to show us the way, but also perhaps for us to protect them and to give them more of that voice. That will definitely continue to put us on the right path. But this is really exciting, and what an inspiring opportunity we have.
Super, Molly. Thank you very much. And I have to say that this concept of eco-civilization is not a new one. I didn't invent it a couple of months ago. I downloaded all these beautiful graphs and some initial ideas, but I got introduced to this idea in 2013 by International System Science Society. And I'm so thrilled that I can see one of those members of that initial group today with us. Irma Wilson is here. And I asked her to just step in and share a little bit her views with us. How do you feel, Irma, after all these years, to see the topic of our Vietnam Global Conference, Eco-Civilization for a Thrivable Planet, coming back so strongly and emerging in the global sphere? Please, Irma, so good to see you.
Thank you, Violetta. Really good to see you, and hello to everyone. I think that it is high time that those seeds start shooting. In fact, it is now in that 99th, right at the edge. We are right at the edge. And yes, what I'm seeing is that, and what this year has brought for so many, is that we truly have to turn towards each other, and we have to look at every single thing that we give our attention to. We have to pay very close attention to what it is that we give attention to in this time, and know that we were born to be here at this time. And what are we going to do with this moment and the next? And none of us can make the big changes that we would like to snap our fingers and get immediate change. But we can change our inside, and we can really allow and help the people around us to see each other in a more relational way, because I so much agree with the fact that this society needs to be regenerative. I don't think sustainable is good enough anymore. We have actually destroyed so much that we have to now regenerate before, and then we can be sustainable. I think that there are, myself included, many people who were thinking at meta levels that are coming right down into the macro. But at the meta level, we have to get information systems that we can trust. Because, I think it is incredibly important that we are allowed to be warm again, human again. And for this I think is really important. The information system, the warmth, and the information systems, because I think that so many people are so confused by all the noise. So I think it's important that we get this ambient noise a little bit quieter, and that more training is given for people to trust their intuitions and to go and look from at least 10 different perspectives or contexts at any particular thing, so that we can activate our I want to use very plain language and not some of the fancy language that my brain wanted to throw in. I want to say more simply that we have to be able to connect our animal and our spirit brains together again.
Wow. Irma, this is a very powerful message, and I do hope that I will see you back and we can actually retrace the roots and get the whole tribe together as well, just to empower even stronger the movement that is emerging. But thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on it. And I just realized that we have Margaret Hannan as well with us. With her, we had an incredible talk, two actually talks on health and in eco-civilization, and there was so much stress on care instead of really this avatar type of approach to health. And Margaret, I wonder, how do you feel listening to all this? Because during our discussion and later on when we were working together on this chapter of the book that we were invited to submit, how do you feel now when you hear so many going even deeper into this concept of care and relationship and caring about each other? Margaret, please.
Thank you very much, Violetta. It's a real privilege to be back in the conversation again. I've been sorry to have missed so many of the seminars that you've organized, and what an incredible series that you have started since the beginning of the year, and what excitement for the future. We've got much to look forward to next year as well. I've been very heartened by today's conversation, very deeply moved by the challenge of facing our demons, our inner demons, and the work it takes, the courage it takes to look at that honestly. And actually, it's only done with care and containment from others. So this relational component of our being needs to lie at the heart of how we care for each other. So my contribution last time was around how can health and care services and systems be transformed by that insight? Because unless we've got those caring relationships properly nourished and understood, we create a great deal of additional pathology, re-traumatization, and fragmentation of ourselves. The very contrary aim of our systems to try and be there to help people recover and stay well. So that's probably all I need to say today, just to say just how incredibly privileged I have been to listen in on the conversations. And I particularly, sorry, I should say one more thing, because in my work in Scotland, we've been really inspired by the indigenous wisdom of the Alaskan Native model of care. They call it the Nuka system. And it's completely based on this notion of this relational, the importance of quality relations in the family, in the community, good listening, and really responding to that and growing your responses in terms of care and support. So their care services are completely different from your typical modern healthcare system, because they're not based around diseases, they're based around the concerns that people have in their lives. And I think this is a real opportunity we have for the future of how we look after each other in this century.
Thank you, Margaret. So true and so important. So let's make sure we continue to expand and learn from each other and just activate ourselves with the confidence that others are supporting us as well. So Urška, what do you think? You know, you've listened now to a couple of reactions, and I will invite more of our guests and attendees today, because the chat room is so rich. But after Urška, I will invite Anna to share the summary of thoughts on eco-civilization, and then back to you guys for your comments and your questions. Urška.
Okay, I'd like to say that I spent 8 or 9, sometimes 10 hours per day with my patient and all this pain. And sometimes I am pessimistic, because, you know, this is not a dream job like looks like maybe in the movies, but sometimes always leads me that I try to be every minute my job part of solution, not of the part of the problem. Always when I'm a little bit pessimistic, I think, what is solutions here? So this is lead me.
You think we can cure ourselves internally in order to be able to see and engage in creating the civilization and the societies that we actually would like to live in? Do you think we can manage to make that step?
Of course. I think that we could manage, but it's not easy.
Yes.
It's hard work.
We should start enjoying in these tough conditions and especially have trust in each other, that we will support each other in achieving those hard goals. So Jan, thank you, Urška, and Jana, back to you. So what kind of answers did we get? Just share a few of them with us.
Exactly, this trust in the future that you were just referring to is very well a part of what the participants shared. Mostly they're very hopeful for the future and grateful that they found a community here where we have shared values and we want to work on this positive development. We have some answers. Molly said, because we deserve a wholesome human experience, which I think really is very much to the point. We have people who are new to this concept, but who found their beliefs in what we do and are excited to be a part of these developments. And also the fact that this is a movement that is, and the values are really outspoken, and we have a concept is something that gives people hope that they can better relate to, because as you already showed us, you have a whole concept developed on this, and it's good to know where we're going, not just to have some ideas, but to have a structure. So this is the feedback we've been getting from the chat.
Super. I saw that Matjaž made some very clear comments. Matjaž, would you like to go live and share your experience with us?
Hello, everybody. Do you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm really grateful that I was part of this discussion in the previous months. And one of my comments was the idea that came to my mind very frequently. And this is how we should live in a balance of what we are getting from all the people around us, from the nature, and what we are giving back to this. So my strong belief is that we need to bring this into a sort of balance.
Super.
So this would be my little contribution to the discussion.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you. And Raini, you wanted to share something with us as well. Please go ahead. And mute yourself, please.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Violeta, for this opportunity. And in fact, I was listening to this wonderful discussion with a lot of attention. And thank you so much for introducing such wonderful speakers, because I was not knowing all of them, but today I'm feeling very fortunate that I got an opportunity to listen to them. So I have one question, and maybe if you allow me, Violeta, may I? Okay, thank you. So my question might be answered by Rajan, Molly, Ruska, whosoever feels like. And my question is, at times, I think it happens with everyone in this world. At times we feel what is coming from us is out of self-esteem, whereas it is coming out of ego, which is being told by others that you are egoistic. But in my eyes, or in person's eyes, you feel that you are having your self-esteem. How do we differentiate where we are crossing the line from self-esteem to ego?
Dražen, would you like to pick it up? Thank you, Raini.
Thank you.
But unmute yourself, Dražen, please. Yes.
Yeah, this is possible to the process of you do all these things to differentiate between the ego, between the other messages of the parents, of the society, to the process. That means through the relationship, for example, from my point of view, to the relationship with the therapist, you explore. Then you see and differentiate. This is my desires, these are my psychological needs, and these are not. These are demands of the society or the parents. It's a very subtle process, but when you go through this process, you know the difference because you feel it. These are my core values, and these are not. And then you differentiate. And the second point, when you withdraw the projections of our own pain onto the others, then you become more open towards others. You don't see them as a threat, and you don't have needs to impose your own opinion on others. You respect others because we all have different perspectives. So maybe that was my perspective.
Super. Thank you, Dražen. And before I ask my guests for their final conclusive thoughts, let me invite a few more of you, and we will expand for a few minutes our session, but we are getting to the end. David, would you like to share your thoughts? And then I would also like to ask Natalie, because she has something to share which will be of great interest to Molly. And also I'd like to ask, of course, Sonia, if you're still with us, because you are connecting us to the previous session and previous discussions. Please.
Hi, Violeta. Hi, everybody. Hi. All around the world, the global. As I already said, eco-civilization, why I joined, what I see inside is something which connect psychology, physical body, nature, business, politics, the whole society, the whole world combines together in one platform on which each one of us must define your own potential, your core being, what is your call to contribute to this world. As Matthias Schlicker said before, what you can give to society, not what you can take from society. So when each one of us find your own mosaics, then the whole picture will come together. And since I was traveling around the world, I'm in business world, I'm psychotherapy in different area. This is for me the platform which combine everything really together. So that's why I found it really useful. And I also bring new people to eco-civilization. I say, go there, meet people, share knowledge, and just develop further. Even today, there is one of my students to say so. So I'm looking forward in further development. And as Violeta did with Inco movement 10, 15 years ago, I believe that eco-civilization is already on the next level. And in this materialistic world, it is reaching the top level, and we must just go on and believe in the future. Thank you.
Voilà. Thank you, David, for your thoughts. And I'm moving now to Natalia. Would you
Hi,
like
everyone. Hi, Violeta. Hi, everyone. Big hugs from snowy Trčova, a little village near Maribor in Slovenia, heart of Europe and the world, right?
Yes.
So it is a big pleasure to announce that we will be publishing a book on the essence of Ubuntu in Slovenian and in English in December this year. So it will be a pleasure, Boli, if we could connect somehow, because Tadej Peric, he is a good friend of mine, and he lives in South African Republic in Johannesburg, right? So he is also establishing a foundation for deprivileged youth. And we have some other plans to work in Africa. So it is really, it is thrilling to see these initiatives to go all over the place and to feel that you are not alone, because sometimes in these times especially, you get this feeling as, you know, you do stuff, you do it all the time and no progress. And Violeta, you are really a special woman, always connecting people from all over the world and to support each other. And that's why I feel that even though it seems slowly progress, right, Sonia? We were discussing this last time after our the meeting with Ekocivilizaciji, but it does change things, and that's why I am so happy to be part of it. And as I don't believe in coincidences, my path with Violeta has crossed several times. And it's always right to the point where I need a push or a jump or a start to something new. So thank you very much. So much.
Well, great. So I hope you and Molly will connect, and of course Sonia and Ubuntu. So Africa, essence, heart will get a huge support from Slovenia, Molly. How's about that? Okay, let's move on and I see that Ramit is still with us as well. So I will, Ramit, I will invite you too after Sonia to share your thoughts, because Sonia and Ramit were both guests in our previous discussion on Individuum and Ecocivilization, and I wonder how they will reflect and how they relate to the content that we discussed today. Sonia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. It was and still is a great discussion, and it sheds the light on different angles of the individual. And what I liked the most was this indigenous connection to the nature and understanding that we are enough, and that deep connection that we need to remember. Yes, and regarding eco-civilization, I see this as a celebration of life. As I said, in any shapes and any forms. And for me, eco-civilization puts the meaning where it should be. And this is a great platform to open a dialogue for our future. So thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. And thank you very much for this reflection and connection to our past and our future at the same time. Molly, you have a good friend here in the audience too. So I wanted to invite Joy, because she's been commenting in quite a lot. So Joy, how do you feel? I mean, you know, Africa has been quite exposed here, and with our Western mind and Western psychotherapist point of view of individual, we got quite exposed to also the collective influence. So how do you feel?
Honestly, I'm just absorbing. I'm on the West Coast like Molly is. I am sorry to say, but true to myself, I'm still in my pajamas. So please let me just absorb and I'm encouraged, I'm motivated. This is awesome to have these conversations that span the globe. We do a lot of these Zoom meetings, and a lot of the meetings that I engage in, are really American based, and I've been in the US for like 22 years. I've done my graduate school here, and a lot of these themes are kind of overlapping. So I'm happy to be able to make those connections. Super. And also, you know, just to look at my journey, my story, where I started off in business, and I still was trying to find what I wanted to do. I got an MBA, I got a PhD, I got like certificates, all in a way of trying to find myself and what I was really interested in doing. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this conversation, and I'm just looking forward to moving ahead and seeing what the future holds.
Super.
And staying in touch with
hi, thanks, Joy, and sorry to cut you off. Sorry, Violetta. So Joy had mentioned something in the chat that I'd seen that I thought was pretty poignant, which is the concept of narratives, right? Being able to tell our own stories, but maybe sometimes to untell those stories or unlearn some things from the past. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it's wonderful just having voices from all over the place. I see Ramet is on the chat, is on the call here, and having people from different places to bring in this diverse perspective, and so that we can be able to tell our own stories, and being able to recognize that there is a danger in having a single story.
Super. You just open up a very interesting topic, which we might need to address in the future, which is fabulation, which is actually storytelling, a very powerful tool in order to express ourselves and deliver a more common understanding. But Ramit, I already announced you. So you were my guest in a previous talk on Individuum and Ecocivilization. How do you relate to the content that we explored today? Please.
Oh, absolutely wonderfully, Violetta, because I think between Sonia, Kurt, and I, we were talking about the individual as an entity, right, in that sense. Whereas today we really delved into the self, and that's been really, really wonderful, because I think for all of us on this call, I think, and I'm assuming I can speak for everyone, at least I was thinking and reflecting on myself and my actions in the past and certain things that I had done. And then when Nurska was talking, and when Drazen was talking, and when Molly was talking, to try and relate that to what my reactions were at different points of time, and what I trying to discover myself really, which I think is absolutely fantastic, because the ability to take an individual, you talk about storytelling, but I think even in this format, the ability to make people think about themselves and their reactions and their world and their society around them, their civilization around them, is fantastic. And I think all three of you, Molly, Drazen, and Urska, it was absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much for that. One thing I do want to, and if you just give me another minute, Violetta, you know, I was speaking to some of my colleagues who I'm doing the FAIR project with. I was having a conversation about eco-civilization. A lot of them watched the video on YouTube as well. And, you know, the common consensus was that, you know, while we try to play devil's advocate, and people said, you know, there's just so much to eco-civilization and Violetta's model, right? There's you know, there are 5 different parts within which there's so many parts. It's so difficult perhaps to look at all of them collectively, right? And then we did an exercise, and I do want to share it with the entire group, is that we just went through all of them one by one, right? And all of us had our own little stories for each and every one of them, right? So while it may look like there's a lot, but every individual has all of that inside them already, because that's the beauty of your bigger model, right? The individual is complete in itself. The community is complete in itself, the world is complete in itself, but we all can work together because we all share all of this commonly, whether we are a collective or we are individuals or the self, either way. So, and I just wanted to share that with all of you.
Ramit, would you mind presenting that on one of our future talks? Just, you know, what you did and how the students or people related to it, and how did you, this an enormous, non-understandable concept finally brought to individuals in the understandable form, because they engaged and they actually saw that maybe it's not such a vast. Will you?
Absolutely, Violetta. I'm more than happy to help in whatever way possible. Because
perfect. You know, we'll be in touch and we'll plan it for the beginning of next year. Okay. Thank you very much. So I know that we could go on and on and on because we have so many wonderful people, and when I read these comments are amazing. But I do have to finish because every story has an ending, but life doesn't. So that is perpetuating endlessly. And that's why we will meet again on different topics. But before I conclude, I'd like to ask our guests for their final thoughts to you and based on your comments. Maybe Urška, we can start with you, please.
Okay, thank you. I think that we could accept the life like it is and go on. That's everything.
Thank you. With joy, I guess, huh? Perfect. Dražen? And yeah.
Yes, I think that life is a paradox, so we have to, in a way, accept it, live with it, and also develop and grow. That's, I think, the last idea.
Thank you, Dražen. And Molly?
Yeah, hi, thank you. And, thanks to everyone for being here and for, taking time for some active learning and listening. I sure have done that. I think maybe I can leave with just a question. How will you express or embody Hono today?
We need a deep breath again, Molly.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you in the name of all of us organizers, also Yuri, who's with us online, with Jana, with Sebastian, Pina Maya. We are just so honored to be able to host something like this. And I promise to continue to hold space that you wonderful people can meet, discuss, and inspire all of us. And in a parallel, we'll try to use this information and create some modeling. I'm hoping for my old tribe, Irma, and the rest of the gang to help me to keep this meta level alive and consistent, that everybody can find then a little space and home within this umbrella. But I'm thrilled, emotional, and incredibly grateful for today's discussion as well. Be well. Take care of yourself, stay healthy, and keep spreading the positive energy, because that's what life is all about, isn't it? Thank you very much. All the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.